Hi, you're welcome once again to today's lesson. So, today we are looking at a very important aspect of the senior high school mathematics. Previously, we looked at how to find the perimeter of plane shapes, area of plane shapes. For instance, when you are given a diagram to find the area, most of the time we've realized that most students face a little bit challenging when it comes to the application aspect of these important concepts. All right, so before that, let me introduce myself once again. My name is Evans. I'm still your mathematics facilitator. So today's lesson, I'm going to be your instructor. This is Mazris TV. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Yes, so my dear students, I want you to stay with me as I take you through few examples on the application aspects. Yes, so as I said, that we are going to look at the real life application as long as these important concepts are concerned. All right, yes, but before that, let's try and see if we can go through some review questions because of what we've done previously. Okay, so we have two questions here. I want to give you a few minutes, look at the questions, think about it, think about the answer, how we are going to solve. So in question one, we are to find the perimeter and the area of the figure. And in question two, we are to find area of triangle ABC. So as I said, let me give you a few minutes to think about it. Okay, then after that, we all go through. All right, great. You are welcome back. So, I know you've gone through all this. You are able to get this because if you get some of these questions, these ones are very basic. Yes. So, let's all go through and see how we are going to get our answers. So, for question one, this is what a rectangle with 8 dimensions. If you are given a rectangle like this, how do you find the perimeter? As we said, that perimeter, when we talk of perimeter of a plane shape or any figure, we are talking about the total distance covering that particular object. All right, yes. So this is what the distance around that, and you remember we deduce a formula that we can use it. Okay, so let's try and use the formula. So we know that perimeter is given as what? 2 multiplying the sum of the length and the width. Okay, so we know our length as what? 56 and our width as what? 25. We just substitute our values and then we are good to go. Okay, then if we sum them, we are getting what? 81. After that, we multiply by what? 2. All right, so let's try and find the area as well. And what did we also say about the area? We said that area of a rectangle is what? Length times what? Breadth or width. Okay, you just pick the two sides, one length and one width. You multiply them. Okay, yes, so that is how it is done. Okay, yes, so as I said, that is how it is done. Then we multiply the two numbers and then we are good to go. Okay, yes, so if you multiply, we are going to get 1400 meters square. Now you know that you should know the difference, the unit attached. You see, perimeter, we just add, we just sum. Okay, so the unit is just in meters, but as we did in the area, we said that area is measured in what? Squared unit. Yes, that is why it is meter squared. So take note of the two so that when you are answering them in your exams, you don't make these mistakes. Oh, okay. All right. Now let's look at the two. So we have this diagram and we are asked to find the area of what? Triangle ABC. So as we did in the triangle, we said that finding area, or yes, how do we find area? Area is what? Half multiplying the base multiplying what? The height. Okay, given this one, how do we identify our base? So we have our base as what? BC, which is given as 36, and then our perpendicular height, which is given as what? This. Yes, someone may argue that, but the triangle is ABC. Why the height there? Yes, we know that a triangle, to find the area, you must get the height. Okay, so if you try to trace the height, bring it here, you realize that yes, at point C, you see that we are still getting that height. Okay, so let's send it back. That is why we are having that as our height. Therefore, we have our perpendicular height as 47. Okay, once you realize all this, then finding the area is very, very what? Easy. So what that you do is just multiply these two dimensions by what? Half. And then you are good to go. Okay, so if we multiply, then we are going to get our final answer as 846 centimeters squared. All right, yes, so I know you got the same answer. If you got it, then well done. All right, now once we are done with our review questions, then let's go to the main agenda. All right, so as I said, our agenda today is that we are going to go through the application aspect of um, perimeter and area. We shall talk about the volume later. Okay, so for now, our focus is on what? The area and perimeter. So let's go through it. All right, so um as I said, that is real life application. Okay, so we will not waste time. Let's take our first example. Let's look at what we have before us. So in question 1, we are saying that a rectangular football field is 120 meters long and x meters wide. If the distance around the field is 390 meters, find the value of x. Yes, so um let's identify let's use this as our football field. Yes, so this is our football field. Then we are saying that it is what? 120 meters long. So when we mention 120 meters long, what are we talking about? We are dealing with what? The length, because you know that for a rectangle we have the length and the width. So the moment you see a measure of what? How long it is, then you know that we are dealing with what? The length. So it means that this will be our length, which is given as what? 120 meters. Then we are saying that x meters wide. Then you should also know that when we are talking about how wide the shape is, then we are dealing with what? The width or the breadth. So in that case, our width, okay, yes, we still have the length, because we know that for a rectangle we have two opposite sides. Okay, yes, then we have the width, which is given as what? X. Then the other side also the same. All right, great. So once we are able to identify all these parts, then how do we find let's identify this. So you see that it is a rectangular what? Shape. All right, yes. Yes, so let's identify this. Okay, so the underlying words. Okay, we are saying that if the distance around the field, so the moment you hear the distance around the field, what comes in mind? Remember, we said that in perimeter, it is what? The distance around what? An object. So if you are reading this statement, then we know that it is the perimeter we are talking about. So that means the perimeter is given in a question. Okay, yes, and we know that perimeter is given as 2 multiplying the length plus 2 multiplying what? The width. Okay, that's another form of writing the formula of what? Perimeter. Then we know that perimeter is given as what? 390 meters. Okay, so what you do is you just use your dimensions and use what is given to you and substitute. All right, so we just substitute our values. Okay, yes, so we get 390 meters is equal to 240 meters plus what? 2x meters. And then we do the needful. All right. Yes, we group items, we do our simplification, and then we divide both sides by what? 2 meters. And that is going to give x as what? 75. So it means that the value of x is what? 75. Very, very interesting. All right. Now let's take another example. Okay. Yes, let's take another example. Yes, so this is example 2. We are saying that a square has one of each side um, 49 centimeters. Find the total amount of space occupied if each side is doubled. Yes. So first of all, let's draw our um, square. Okay. Yes. So we are saying that if one of each side is given as what? 49. And you all know that a square has what? All sides equal. Yes, this one is basic. All right. So if one side is 49, then automatically the rest of the sides are also what? 49 centimeters. And we are saying that we should find what the total amount of space. Now, remember when we're doing area, we said that area is what? The total amount of space occupied in what? A given shape. Okay, so once you also identify such a sentence or a statement, then what comes in mind is that you are going to find out the area of that given um, shape. All right, but remember in the question we are saying that what if each side of the shape, the square is doubled. When we say each side is doubled, what does it mean? It means that in every side we have to what? Multiply by 2. We have to double it. Okay, I have to multiply by 2. In that case, we can multiply each of the sides by 2. If we are doing that, then note that this time the length of each side is going to what? Change. It's going to increase, because if you are doubling it, then it's going to what? Increase. For that matter, we are going to have our new shape with the dimensions. So each side now becomes what? 98 centimeters. All right. So once you have this one, then you go ahead and find your area, and you know how to find area of what? A square. Yes, so we know that for amount of space occupied in that shape, in that square, that is the area. It is for length times length, because all the length are the same. And at the end of the day, when you are finding area of a rectangle or a square, you pick two sides and multiply. All right, so we multiply 98 centimeters by 98 centimeters, and that is going to give us what? 9,604 centimeters squared. So very, very interesting. It's very, very easy. Okay, now if that is the case, then let's take another example. All right. Yes, so this is example 3. So in example 3, we are saying that a rectangular bathroom measures 6.5 meters by 12 meters. The floor is covered by a parallelogram tiles. If each of the parallelogram tile has its perpendicular height of 0.5 meters against one side measuring 1.3 meters, we are to calculate the area of each tile and also find how many full tiles would cover the entire floor. Yes, so looking at this one is also what? Very basic. So first of all, let's try and draw. Now, one thing I would advise is that whenever you are solving web problem questions or application questions, it is almost advisable. Questions that you can do sketches, you can draw shapes, you need to put them down to guide you. All right, yes. So let's draw um our rectangular bath. Okay, yes. So this is, we take this as our rectangular bath, and we are saying that it measures what? 6.5 meters by 12 points. So it means that the longest side takes what? The 12 meter, that is the length, and the shortest side takes what? The 6.5, that is the width. Okay, yes. And then we also take what? Our parallelogram. Okay, so this is what we are using. We are using our parallelogram, this shape as well. Okay, and we all know what a parallelogram is. Okay, we know that all the if you take it, opposite sides are what, equal. So if that's the case, then we can find the height, because we are saying that um it also what has what a perpendicular height of 0.5 against one side measuring what 1.3. So that is what our height. You know that we can get the height here. Okay, yes, and then we can also let the height can also be here. Okay, yes, at the same time the height can also be here. So you see, so that when you meet them in questions, you should be able to identify the height. All right. Yes. So take note of that. So once we know the height, then let's also identify the other part which is given. Okay, because we are saying that against what, one side measuring on 1.3. So automatically that becomes what, the base. Always you realize that the perpendicular height. Okay, the height is perpendicular to the base. All right, yes, and that is what we have as 1.3. If that is the case, then how do we even find the area of each side? You know that the parallelogram represent what, the tile. Okay, so if you are finding the area of what, the tile, it means you are going to find the area of what, parallelogram. All right, yes. So if that's the case, how do we find area of parallelogram? So we know that the area of what, parallelogram is given as what, base times height. So you just multiply the base by what, the height, and that is going to give you what, your answer. Okay, yes. So if you multiply it, then what will be the answer? That is what, 0.65 meters. Okay, 0.65 meters square, because it is an area. So don't forget, I said for area we add what, the square unit. All right, now let's look at the example 2. We are saying how many foot tiles will cover the entire floor. So in this case, what you need to do is that before you know the number, because at the end of the day we are going to use the parallelogram tile to cover the entire hot floor. So if you want to know the number, then we have to find the area of the rectangular room. Okay, then we, because we already calculated for area of what, the tile, each one. Okay, so we find the area of the rectangle, then we divide whatever we have by the area of each parallelogram. All right, yes, that is how it is done. Very, very simple. Okay, so when you get questions like this, my dear student, don't panic, relax, chill. All right, you get it easily. All right. All right, so let's find the area of the rectangle. Okay, yes, so for the area of the rectangle, we are saying that you know that you multiply what, the length by what, the width. Okay, and that gives you if you multiply the two, we are going to get what, 78 meters square. So once we have the area of the rectangle, okay, or the rectangular floor, and we also have the area of the parallelogram or the tile, we just what, divide the 78 meters square by the 0.6. That will help us know the number of what, tiles that will fill or cover the whole place. Okay, so as for that one, we just do the division and we are good to go. All right, yes. So number of full tiles is equal to area of what, the rectangular floor divided by area of what, each tile. Okay, so we just substitute our values and then we are good to go. Okay, if that's the case, what will be the answer? How many tiles do we have? We have 120 full tiles. So it is 120 full tiles that can cover the entire floor. All right, yes, very, very easy. Okay, if that's the case, then we are going to take our last question. Okay, so that we can end here and continue next time. Now in question 4, we are saying that a city park has a trapezium section with the two opposite sides moving in the same direction. measuring 12 meters and 18 meters. And the shortest distance between these two sides is 10 meters. In the middle of this section, there is a flower bed in the shape of what? Rhombus, with diagonals 4 meters and 6 meters. So we are to calculate the total area of the section, also find the area of the flower bed, and we are also saying that if the rest of the section is to be covered in grass, then we should find the area to be grassed. Yes, so this is also a nice question, a very nice question. So let's first identify our trapezium section. Okay, yes, so we know that this is what a trapezium. Okay, so the park is in this nature. That is what the question is saying. It is in this nature. So if that's the case, then let's identify the vertices of this shape as A, B, C, and D. Okay, then we know that the two opposite sides that are moving in the same direction, the moment you hear words like two opposite sides moving in the same direction, what comes in mind? Then you know that we are talking about parallel lines, okay, because we say that they are moving in the same direction. Then it means that DC is also parallel to what? AB. Okay, so they are all moving in the same direction. These are two opposite sides of what? A trapezium. Okay, then we identify the length as what? 12 meters and 18 centimeters. Always the longest side takes what? The higher number. All right, now let's also identify our height. Okay, so this is the height we have, and it was given in the question as what? 10 meters. All right, yes, and in the question we are saying that in the center there was what? A flower what? Bed. So let's, in a form of what? Rhombus. So if in the middle we have rhombus there, then let's try and draw the rhombus in the middle like this. So looking at this nature, that is how it looks like. All right, so rhombus is in the middle, and we are saying that the diagonals, we were given the diagonals of the rhombus. So one diagonal was given as what? 4 meters, and then another diagonal was also given as what? 6 meters. So if you know this one, then we proceed. So in that case, we are asked to what? Find the total area of the trapezium or the section. So we know that the section is the trapezium. So if we are finding the total area of the section, then apparently we are finding what? The area of the trapezium. And we all know how to find the area of trapezium. All right, so let's quickly do that. Great. So we find the area of the trapezium, and we learned previously that the area of trapezium is given as what? Is half multiplying what? The sum of the two opposite sides multiplying what? The height. That is what the formula for finding what? Trapezium. That is how we find the area of trapezium. So you just do your substitution and you are good to go. So we know AB as what? 12 centimeters, and DC as what? 18 centimeters, and then our height is also what? 10 centimeters. So we multiply all of them and we are good to go. Okay, so if you are multiplying all of them, then we are going to get what? Half multiplying 30, because if you add 12 to 18, we are getting what? 30. Then we multiply once again, and then we are going to get what? Half multiplying 300 meters squared, and the final answer is going to give us what? 150 meters squared. So it means that the total distance, no, because we are finding area. So if you are finding area, then we are not talking about what? Total distance. We are talking about what? The amount of space it occupies. Okay, so it means the amount of space it occupies by the trapezium section is what? 150 meters square. Okay, if that is the case, then let's move on to the next question. The next question is also asking us to um, find the area of the flower. We also know that the flower bed is the rhombus. So how do we find area of rhombus? It's also just what multiplying half by what the product of the two diagonals. So whenever before you find the area of a rhombus, you need to know the diagonals. And once you know the diagonals, then finding the area becomes easy. So you just multiply half by the two diagonals, and then you are good to go. We also know the two diagonals as what? 6 meters and 4 meters. So half multiplying what? 4 meters by what? 6 meters. And that is what we are going to get what? 12 meters squared. 12 meters squared. So it means that um, the area of the flower bed is what? 12 meters, okay, squared. Now in our next question, we are saying that if we are to find what the area of the covered what? Grass, or the area, you know that in the question we are saying that in the middle, if you look at the diagram, that you realize that in the middle or in the center there is what? A rhombus there. So we want to know the spaces left. Okay, we want to know the area of the spaces left if we are to cover those areas. Okay, yes, that is what we are talking about. So how do we find the area? It's just simple. It's just a matter of what we do is we just find, we've already calculated for area of the trapezium. We've also calculated the area of what? Rhombus. So what we do is we just subtract the area of what? Rhombus from the area of what? The trapezium. What is left is the area of the place that we are going to cover with what? Grasses. So very, very easy, very, very simple. So what we do is we just substitute our values. So just 150 meters squared minus 12 meters squared, and that is going to give us what? 138 meters square. Very simple. All right, so you see that you have application questions, you have life related questions like this. Don't panic. Okay, relax, read the questions thoroughly, understand it before you even start. So if that's the case, then I want us to end here and continue next time. So in our next lesson, we shall look at what we call prism. Okay, prism. We are going to look at all of them. There are a lot of examples, and I advise all of you. So go through a lot of examples, solve a lot of examples, and at the end of the day, you are going to get the concept. So if that's the case, then let's end here and continue next time. All right. Yeah. So let me introduce myself once again. My name is Evans. I'm your mathematics facilitator. This is Masvis TV. Kindly subscribe, like, and share. So if that's the case, then let's meet next time. Okay. Bye bye.